Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Experience Maker Show. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Dan Gingiss. I'm a customer experience speaker and coach, and I'm here every week with you at 4 o'clock Eastern for the Experience Maker Show, where I get to talk to experts in the customer experience space and hopefully extract some key learnings from them that all of us can take back to work the next day and start implementing. So thanks again for joining us. Remember that you can ask questions at any time. Please leave them in the comments, no matter what platform you're on. We're broadcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter today. Leave us your comments. We will see them, and we'll get to your questions in the next half hour. I'm super excited to introduce today's guest today. She is the manager of customer advocacy and also a customer experience evangelist at Thompson Reuters Elite. She is Debbie Szumylo. How are you, Debbie? Welcome.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
It is my pleasure. I'm super excited to talk to you. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and also about Thomson Reuters?
Sure. I've been in the industry, the customer experience industry, for about 17 or 18 years. I kind of fell into it accidentally a long time ago, before it was trendy, before it was a thing, and had the really great opportunity to sort of pave my own way. And that my career has been sort of like that. It's been crazy and fun and interesting, and I've got to learn a lot of different unique things, and was able to build a lot of unique things. And now at Thomson Reuters, I've had the great opportunity to be part of an organization where they definitely believe in the customer experience. They definitely have a leadership team that wants to support it and grow it. And it's been really great to be part of a large organization that has the customer experience as one of its focal points and lives and breathes it every day and supports those of us that are doing that work within the company.
I love it. And just for those that don't know, tell me what Thomson Reuters does.
The part of the company that I'm in, we sell software globally. So we sell legal software to global law firms. We help them run their day-to-day business. It's payroll, it's invoicing, billing, everything that a law firm would need to do. We sell the software that helps them get their work done day to day, but there are many other parts of the business. You might be familiar with Reuters News. That's part of our business. Legal reference attorneys, everything that legal businesses need to do, Thomson Reuters touches that in some way.
And you mentioned that it was a company that really supports customer experience from the top. Give us a sense a little bit, because I know a lot of people watching are like, man, I wish I could work for a company where that's true. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Like, how do you feel good enough about Thomson Reuters to say, yeah, this company really cares about customer experience?
I guess the first example I can think of is my job, for starters. I'm a customer experience evangelist. Who has that title and has that role? Not very many people. And I was hired specifically for my knowledge and my expertise around the customer experience. So to me, in a lot of ways, that's still pretty rare. So that was kind of the first signal. But also, we have developmental roles that roll up into customer experience. We have what we call blue chips, and every single department in the company is accountable for impacting the customer experience positively. Not only lower level people, mid-level people, but our top executives are accountable for that. And it's something that we do daily. And at the end of the year, when we have our reviews, it's part of what we're accountable and held accountable for. That's a big deal. That's how you drive change, and you make things happen, by making sure that that's something that everyone has to be held accountable for.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I have been in companies where customer experience is quote unquote everybody's job, and then it becomes
Right.
nobody's job, right? And
Exactly.
by putting it into people's goals and having it be part of their reviews, that's a great way to really get them interested in it. And I know that one of the things I found also spending 20 years in corporate America is that when you create goals, you really can't have more than 4 or 5 goals that you're asking somebody to accomplish during a year, because when you get down into the sort of percentage allocation of those goals, anything that's less than about 20% of your time, people just don't care. And
Right.
so, I remember being in one company where we had a customer experience goal, but it was like 5% of everybody's,
Right.
rating. And that's not enough to get them to care. But I love that, you're in a company where it really is, you're graded on it, frankly, you're reviewed on it. And that means your salary and your bonus are dependent on it. And I do think that is the way to get people really interested.
Right.
So that's super cool. Now, you said that you fell into customer experience. I feel like a lot of us did that. I did
Yeah.
as well. Tell me how that happened.
Um, I worked in a company we were check printers. And we kind of were and this was in the 90s. We were kind of at the end of checks, getting there anyway. We knew that our viability was kind of running to the end, and we had to figure out a way to still be meaningful and still be relevant to our clients. We didn't want the business obviously to come to an end. And so I just sort of happened to be in the right place at the right time. And there was a group of marketing folks that went to our clients and said, what can we do to help you? What keeps you up at night? And they went to C-level folks and said, tell us what is keeping you up at night. And they talked about the satisfaction of their customers and their end customers, and also asked them, are you concerned about Walmart and State Farm and some of the brick and mortar companies now becoming a bank, and how are you going to compete with them, and what are you going to do to stand out when all of a sudden everybody's a bank? And they said, we're really worried about how do we retain customers, and how do we keep our customers satisfied when everybody else is a bank? We've got a bank popping up everywhere, and satisfaction was a big deal. And so the folks I was working with, we came back in and we decided that we can do satisfaction, but we have to kind of bump that up a notch. Let's talk about experience. What can we do to teach our C-level bankers not only to satisfy their customers, but move that a step up? How can we help them create a true experience that makes people want to go back into the banks? Because banks, a lot of times, is like going to the dentist. You don't want to do it unless you absolutely have to. So we created a homegrown program to educate our bankers on customer experience so they could start bringing people back in. And it ended up being really cool. It revived the business, and they're still doing it today. We created an education program that was conferences, in-person conferences. It was an award-winning magazine. It was turnkey products. It was a whole plethora of things that we had no idea really what we were doing. We just did it. We listened and we just did it. And it was awesome. It was one of the best experiences of my career so far.
I really like that because I think so much of business is you just have to do it. I mean, I was having a conversation yesterday with my son, who's a high schooler, and he's a freshman, and they were asking him to start planning his courses for the rest of high school. Now, we didn't have to
Yeah.
fill them all out, but you have to ask these. It was actually called Plan Your Future Night, and so we were talking about this, and what had occurred to me was that so much of what I know now, I did not learn in school ever. And I went to college, I went to business school, and I learned it all in the workforce. Funny story, my majors in college were psychology and communications. And the reason I chose those two was just because I was interested in them. I didn't
Sure.
realize till after I graduated that psychology plus communications is basically marketing.
Yeah.
And so I happened to fall into marketing, which was great, but I learned how to be a marketer by doing it. And
Absolutely.
similarly with customer experience, I just kind of got into it. And you know, sometimes it's as natural as thinking like a customer and asking yourself, would I like to experience this? Is this how I like dealing with a company? And if the
Yeah.
answer is no, let's make it so that it is something that I could tolerate. And really, just by asking that simple question, you can really change things quite a bit.
Right.
Um, so people always worry about, I think when they hear customer experience, first of all, people think, oh, that's going to be big and expensive. And it doesn't
Right.
have to be either one. Or two, it's going to be hard. I got to learn it. I got to, take classes or something like that. And I don't know, we're all consumers. So I feel like we can all do customer experience if we want. Have you found that as well?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think, and coming into this industry, this legal industry, I work with a lot of people that have been around for a long, long time. And because I was brought in to a part of the business that people are very tenured, and I was brought in specifically for with a non-legal background,
Right.
I was looked at, and still sometimes am looked at like I had three heads, and I'm used to that as part of my career journey. I have one colleague that still always says to me, "What are you going to disrupt today?" But I'm okay with that because
It's a good question. Yeah.
but my approach is not, I'm going to ram this down your throat, and my approach is much more, let's take a look at what we're doing here and how can we tweak this just a little bit differently than the way you might have done it yesterday. And slowly over time, you're able to win people over by doing it that way versus let's upset this whole apple cart and make all these changes right away. There's a lot that can be said for tweaking things as you go and making small changes. And when they look at it later and they realize that customers are now into this and they get it and they're happy about what changed, you can make a lot of headway and you can win a lot of people over by doing it that way. And so that's kind of been my whole approach this entire time for the last 17 years that I've done this. Let's do it in baby steps and we'll get there. And nothing can happen overnight anyway. It's just not possible.
I couldn't agree more. I love to, if you'll forgive the sports reference for a second, I love to quote former Cubs manager Joe Madden, now the LA Angels manager, and he in baseball says one of his big phrases is "do simple better." And I love those three words because while it does apply to baseball, it also very much applies to customer experience. It's
Yep.
the simple things, the little things that if we do better, they all add up.
Yep.
And I am a believer that death by a thousand paper cuts is a tough way to go, and that's what we do to our customers. And over time,
Exactly.
we wear them down. And they may not leave today, they may not leave tomorrow, but at some point, it's going to be that straw that breaks the camel's back, and they're going to say, "This is it. I'm out of here."
Yep.
And by that time, it's way too late. So I love the idea of looking for the little stuff. It also, one of the things I always look for in coaching people on great experiences is that they're simple, practical, and inexpensive.
Right.
Because if they're not any of those three things, then they're difficult, which we don't want.
Right.
They're impractical, or they're too much money. And that's why very rarely do I share experiences from some of the really high end brands like a Four Seasons that do amazing things. It's
Yeah.
just that they have budgets to do amazing things, and most of us don't have that kind of budget, right? So
Right.
I love examples. Can you give us something, either from Thomson Reuters or from even just as a consumer, but give us an example of sort of a small change that makes a big impact?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you one that I just experienced here. I do journey mapping with our clients, and I'm trying to think of, we have some documentation that goes out to our clients, and we've been pushing it out for years in a PDF format. And during a journey mapping session, well, trying to understand I had some of the product team on that call with me. We have to do it on calls now with COVID, but on the call we were just talking about what the clients were telling us what they use that documentation for, and as they were explaining it to us, the product team was like, "Oh, I didn't even realize that's how you used it." It was kind of an aha. They never asked how the client actually used it. They just assumed that it was used a specific way. Well, as we were talking, somebody said, "Well, I have to cut and paste all these different pieces of this PDF to distribute it to my team, and it would be so much easier if I just had it in an Excel document. Then I could sort it and I could filter it and I could send this part to this person and this part to this person, and I could get what I'm trying to accomplish done in half the time." And we all just sat there because it was such a simple request. All they wanted was a change of document format. And it was something that the product team and everyone on that call never even considered because we never asked. It was a simple, simple fix that had been delivered in a certain way for years because nobody but ever bothered to ask if a different format would have solved a simple problem that the clients have been complaining about for years.
That is such a great example. And I love that you point out Ask your customer. I mean, that is the best way to figure out what's next. People always say, well, okay, I don't know where to start in customer experience. Well, the way you start is you talk to your customers and you ask them, what do you like about doing business with us? And whatever they tell you, you do more of that. And then you say, what is makes doing business with us difficult, or what is frustrating for you or confusing? And whatever they tell you there, those are the first things that you want to start working on, especially if you're hearing it from more than one person. Remember also the old call center maxim that every time somebody calls to complain about something, there's usually 100 other customers that didn't call. Now, the danger there is that the ones that don't call eventually attrite. They leave your business for the competition and they never even tell you why they left. So that's even more dangerous than the person who calls to complain, because at least that person is looking for a resolution. They want your help because they want to stay with you. So it is so critical to listen to customer feedback. How do you do that? You can go onto social media and you can listen to what
Yeah.
people are saying about you. Even if they're not tagging your brand, you can look for mentions of your company or of your product. You can look for industry mentions or mentions of your competitors. You can also hold a focus group and invite some
Mhm.
customers. And today it's so easy to do that on Zoom. Just invite them to a Zoom call and ask them questions about what it's like to do business with you. They will share more than you can ever imagine. And you'll find lots of examples like that spreadsheet example, Debbie, where somebody at Thompson Reuters is like, well, if we had only known that 3 years ago, we would have saved ourselves a lot of stress, right?
Right.
And so it's you can't over communicate when it comes to listening to customers and talking to customers about their experience, because one thing we know about today's customer, they are more than happy to share their opinion, but you do have to ask a lot of
Right.
times. So that's awesome. Well, we're coming up on time. I want to ask you where you think customer experience is going, especially now that, I don't know if our listeners or viewers have noticed, but the last 6 or 7 months have been a little bit different, a little bit peculiar, a little bit unique. And it's had a big effect on customer experience. So, where do
Yeah.
you think we're going next? What's 2021 going to look like if you can put on your prognosticator hat?
That's a good question. I mean, I think one thing that we know for sure is customers have a good memory. And I do think that what has happened in the last 6 months is going to result in who wins and who loses. I think, whether it be however COVID has affected companies, there are some that have done a terrible job of listening, to your point earlier, and some that have treated their employees terribly, and consumers have paid attention to that. And I do think that's going to start to show up. And I don't know that it's always going to be fair, but I think that in 6 to 7 months we will see who stood out and who didn't, as far as companies and businesses go. And what I mean, employee experience is a huge, huge piece of the customer experience. It's the top of the it's the very first thing. And some employees have been treated really, really poorly, and it's been very public. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that. We're going to see the results of that. And we're going to see, I think, consumers turn away from some of those companies where it's been really public. And we're going to see consumers turn away from companies that have not been able to figure out how to use the shift in how we've done business as an opportunity to create and rise above here. And some companies have done it really, really well, and some just haven't. That's sort
I
of what
think
I'm
that's
thinking.
Yeah, I think that's super smart. I love the comment, customers have a long memory. I think that's totally true. And the way that we treat our customers now, when the chips are down, when people are stressed, when it's tough times, they're going to remember that when the pandemic is behind us and things are happier again and we're giving hugs and going to big conferences and all the other things that we love doing. People are going to remember the companies that took care of them right now. So great point, Debbie. Great way to finish. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. It's been fun to follow you and your career and what's going on with you the last few years that we've known each other, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right. Next week, we are going to have on another good friend of mine, Bella Vasta. Bella is such an interesting person. She is a speaker and business consultant, and her focus is on the pet sitting business. So I love trying to find people in different industries that maybe we don't talk about as much because customer experience is everywhere. So come and join me with Bella next week, same time, same place, right here on the Experience This show. I also want to remind people that I put out a bi-weekly newsletter. I choose bi-weekly, which is every other week, because I don't like getting a whole lot of email in my inbox either. And so I try to limit it and try to make them chock full of great content and useful events that are coming up, tips and tricks, etc. So go to the bit.ly link at the bottom here. It's bit.ly/Gingiss email and sign up for my bi-weekly newsletter, The Experience Maker. Speaking of The Experience Maker, you've been watching The Experience Maker Show. I'm Dan Gingiss, customer experience speaker and coach. We'll see you next week and every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Thanks so much for joining us and have a great weekend.